Good morning and welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration, here to inspire you. Hopefully, anyway. It's a beautiful day in St. Louis, Missouri today, about 45 degrees. It's supposed to rain today, but we're going to get out there and get after it. And if we get rained out, we get rained out. But I've been thinking about a topic today. I think it's amazing how we take words and make them into something they originally weren't meant to be. As time passes and as cultures change, as society changes. I have one word in mind specifically, but I'll start off with this word, the word nice. Look up the root meaning of the word nice. Okay, nice guys finish last, right? And when it comes to women, they really do. Women don't like nice guys, contrary to what they might say. The root word, the root meaning of the word nice comes from a Latin word which means ignorant, like naive, stupid. That was where it come from. Now these words carry meaning throughout centuries, although people look at them differently. Take for example the word gay. The word gay used to mean happy. Now of course it means homosexual, okay? That's the word they use. And we have all these other words like queer. Okay, now that's what they use in the LGBT. I can't remember all the letters, but when I was young, if you called someone a queer, that was very hateful or mean, or it was an insult. So, but now that word is okay to use. So words change meaning according to what the mood of the culture is, or the thinking or the group consciousness of the culture. But those words aren't the ones I want to talk about. The one I want to talk about today that I see as a new buzzword is trauma. Now, if you look up the meaning of the word trauma, it says the first, in the Webster's, the first line of the definition is like the death of a child. The death of a child. I posted it the other day. I may not be verbatim. But it's something traumatic like that, or let's say you're in a car accident and you're a child and your parents get killed, and you watch, you're sitting there looking at them and they're bloody and they're dead. That's pretty damn traumatic. Or if you're in a war and you see people getting blown up and killed around you, that's traumatic. Or if you're in a car accident yourself and maybe you lose your arm, or you almost die, or you're laying there by yourself for hours and wondering if you're going to make it, that's trauma. But what I see now is this modern culture using this word to describe things like, well, this may be extreme, an extreme exaggeration, but I wanted to go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac, but Dad would only get me fries. Or I was in a school play and everybody else got an award for their performance, but I didn't. I mean, everybody's a winner, right? It's like, I heard people talking about, and I hear this a lot from coaches, talking about how you need to deal with your past trauma. Now, if you've had some serious trauma, I would say, like, let's say you were in the 911 tower, or even if you were watching and seeing people jump out of the windows, that would be, it's just my opinion, I could be wrong, but that would be pretty traumatic watching that. It would be hard to get over, okay? But watching it on TV, I mean, I remember seeing somebody jump out of the window on TV. That, man, it was a sad thing, don't get me wrong, but it's not traumatic for me. But for the people involved, or if you were there eyewitnessing it, I could see where that's a trauma. But like I said, it's amazing how we take that word now and people are using it like everything that happened to you when you was a kid, if you didn't get your way, or maybe your parents divorced. I mean, that could be difficult. But when we take these words and try to make, I really believe we weaken ourselves. If we look at everything in our past that hurt our feelings, or that upset us, or that was difficult to get over with as a trauma, you will come, you come to believe that's exactly what it is. And if you continue to use this word for everything in your past, or a lot of things in the past that you really didn't like, that affected you, it empowers that to become more difficult and something you have to carry now because it was a traumatic experience. When I look back on my childhood, my dad used the belt. He was a rough World War II veteran, Korean War veteran, He whipped the crap out of me. Okay, but the neighborhood kids that I hung with had the same thing. We all had black, blue, and red marks on our legs. Now, was that traumatic? I don't really look at it that way. I guess I could view it that way. And some people, life coaches, would tell me that was traumatic for you. I'll tell you what was traumatic, and that doesn't even seem traumatic, but when I was riding my bicycle with a group of boys down this gigantic hill, and I got that high-speed wobble, and my bike started flipping, and I don't remember, but they said I hit my head 3 times every time the bike flipped, but I didn't let go of the bike. I ended up in the hospital, woke up the next day with a concussion. I was okay, but in my whole side, I was like, I had road rash. Man, I was in bad shape. Now, I suppose you would call that traumatic, but I don't really view it as traumatic. I view it as one of those things that happen when you're a kid and you're out there having an adventure and you're having a good time, and we do crap like that. But a lot of people would probably call that a traumatic accident. I don't view it that way. I have other things that happened to me too when I was younger that people now would call traumatic. Let me try to think of one. Okay, my dog ran away. Now, of course, that made me sad. It was almost like a movie deal. So my dad and I is looking for my dog because it ran off or something. So we're trying to find it. And I find the dog with a group of other dogs. It's almost like a scene out of a movie. So we stop the truck, we get out, I call my dog, and it starts to come towards the truck, towards me. And the other group of dogs is standing there. So he gets about halfway between me, the truck, and the other dogs. And he stops. He looks at me, he looks at the other dogs, he turns around and runs off with the other dogs. Okay, so I was pretty bummed out. I couldn't cry in front of my dad because that's just the way things were back then. Crybaby, that's the word I used to hear. I don't know if I ever heard it from my father, but that's just the way it was back then. So I don't consider that traumatic, but I tell you what I did do. I did stuff my feelings about that. And I never had another dog again until probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I got bit by 5 or 6 dogs since then. Not because I was afraid of them, but they would just jump up and bite me. So I believe I carried a resentment against dogs for that, for years. But I never expressed the sadness and the pain I felt because I couldn't do it in front of my dad. So I did do that later on. I still don't consider that traumatic. I consider that just one of the things that happens to people when we grow up. These things happen. I've been in a couple of accidents. I don't consider them traumatic. I've seen a couple of dead people. I've seen people laying on the road that got run over by a car. I've been robbed with people by guns. I've had people attempt to rob me, and I was able to fight them off because I was a professional amateur boxer. That helps. So I can protect myself. I don't consider these things traumatic. As I said, I kind of explained to you what I consider to be traumatic for people. But we've taken this word and we use it for everything now. I was in school and the bully picked on me, so that was traumatic. I got picked on by bullies. When one of my friends, we became friends, moved into the neighborhood when I was probably 4 years old, this guy got me down. I guess he put his knees on my arms and just beat the crap out of me. Okay, and then one of the older neighborhood kids, who later went on to be the prosecutor here in this town and works in the Capitol now, beat up the kid that beat up me. And then after that, we were all friends. We all played Army and flashlight tag and all these things together. Now, I still remember that, and it was scary, and it hurt, but is that trauma? Is that a traumatic experience? I guess if I want to believe it is, your perception of the past is going to make it what you want it to be, what it is. I used to look at my past, probably years ago, I would look at my past like, well, my mom and dad never told me they loved me. They never hugged me until I got older when I was in my 30s, and I did it to them first, and then they started doing it back. So I kind of used that as a, how do I say, as a poor me maybe, or yeah, I just didn't get this love. And it was very difficult for me when I would be at a meeting or something with certain people, and they would come up afterwards and want to hug me. I thought that's kind of strange because I never grew up around that. I don't have a problem with that today. Some of my friends will come up, shake my hand, and they'll give me a hug. I'm okay, but Well, that made me uncomfortable for a long time because that wasn't what I grew up around. But these things, okay, but as I said, I was talking about how I used to feel like, well, they never told me they loved me. I changed that. I started looking back and thinking, well, so what? They did the best they could. They provided me with a house, clothes, food, everything I needed. They were there every day at a certain time. They provided me with structure. Both of them worked for 36 years at a company. They went to work every day. They showed me a good work ethic. So when I started focusing on the things they did give me, and I also found out a little bit about how they were raised and how much better of a life they gave me than what they had. My dad's dad, I never knew him. He was an alcoholic, and he left my dad when my dad was 2. I think my dad was in an orphanage. My mom's dad was an alcoholic also. He died when he was 42, fell over and bled to death in the yard. So they didn't know any of this, and they grew up in a time during the Depression, or right after the Depression. So there wasn't a lot of this, what we have now, this love and share your emotions and vulnerability. It was a tough time. And I believe in being vulnerable, but not in front of your woman. If you have a mentor, a sponsor, a man who can guide you, a best friend, someone who is your accountability partner, be vulnerable in front of that person. It's okay to cry about your mom. It's okay to cry about your dog, but don't do that in front of your woman or your kids, because they need you to be strong, and that is not being strong for them. There's a time and a place to be vulnerable. There's a time and a place to be sad. I was watching the sun come up this morning, and it was so beautiful that I came to tears. Now, I won't do that in front of my woman because they just don't understand that. They do not feel safe with a man who cries about things like that. I don't know why. It's just the way it is. Okay? But people will try to tell you nowadays, and even women will tell you, you need to open up, be yourself, be emotional in front of me. But yet when you do it, they're like a deer in the headlights. They don't know what happens, and they lose their attraction for you. Women and children lean on you for your strength. If you're out working and you lost your job today, you don't need to come home. Tell your wife and kids you don't know what you're going to do. You don't know if you're going to be able to make the house payment. You might have to move. You're not sure if you're going to be able to, you're scared. Okay, that's how you feel, and there's nothing wrong with feeling that way. But don't share that with your woman or your kids. You got a best friend, share it with him. And he's going to tell you to get up off your ass and do something that you can make it. Your kids, your wife look to you for strength. You got to be the rock. You got to be the mountain. As a man, they depend on you to be strong. They depend on you to say, look, everything's going to be okay. I've taken care of you. I've taken care of you thus far, so don't worry. I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to get you through it, and we're going to come out better on the other side. This is happening to help me, and thus, if I'm helped, if I'm succeeding, you're going to succeed. So you don't have to worry about anything. Now, if you're really afraid, go tell somebody else. And if you want to cry, you want to piss and moan about it, do that with your buddy. And he's going to listen to you for a while, but then he's going to tell you to get up and be a man. And if you're a man, you're going to go out there, you're going to make it happen. You're going to do what you got to do to get done what you have to get done to provide for yourself and your family. So that's about all I got for words today, but be careful how you use your words, how you describe your past, how you describe your present, and how you describe your future, because words are very powerful. By your words, you will be acquitted, and by your words, you will be condemned. Not by anybody on the outside, but by yourself. Don't call yourself stupid or ignorant or a dumbass when you make a mistake. I hear people do that, and it makes me cringe. Because what you say to yourself over and over again with emotion becomes true in your world. So I'm going to stop there. That's all I got time for today. Thanks for joining me, and share this with a friend. See you tomorrow.